Hello, you're listening to the Polari podcast with me, Sophia Blackwell.
And me, Paul Burston.
And we are going to be revisiting Polari's first show at Heaven Nightclub in quite some time. Paul, obviously the end of 2020 was very disappointing when we realised with a matter of days to go that the show that we'd planned at Heaven, or rather that you had planned at Heaven, couldn't go ahead. In May, towards the end of the month, we returned. How did that feel?
It felt very emotional. It was a huge relief in many ways because there was you know, having made the plans before and then them change at the last minute, and having very little faith in the government and their decision-making processes, there was always that faint fear that maybe the same thing would happen again and we'd get a cancellation very late in the day. Also, people were very slow to book. I think they'd been burnt the previous time, so ticket sales were slow, and then towards the end there was a huge rush and it ended up being really busy. But so there was a lot of trepidation in a way, but getting back in the building on the day for me was very emotional. And also it was the first time that I was going to be on stage since I stopped drinking, because I quit drinking on December 31st. I had a glass of champagne for New Year's Eve and that was my last drink. And usually before going on stage, I have a drink or two to steady my nerves. And so I was thinking, God, can I do this? And also to go back on stage and it be that stage, because it's such a huge stage. Heaven is a very big stage to command. You know, it's kind of a rock star stage more than a cabaret stage. Also, it was quite emotional because Fiji Lee was on the bill and I knew it was going to be her last gig with us. So there was an awful lot of emotions going around, really. The atmosphere backstage was great, though. It was really, everyone was very, very buzzed up about it. Everyone was very excited to be back on stage again and be in front of a live audience, because we hadn't been in front of a live audience since October. A lot of our regulars were there. Because it was all table seating, I was able to allocate tables to people when they booked on a sort of first come, first served basis. But obviously I recognised the names of the regulars straight away, and they often were the first to book anyway, so I made sure they were near the front, and just to ensure that there's that you know, the atmosphere you want, you know, when you come on stage in a big venue like that, you want the front few tables to be full of your friends and family and fans, just to get the atmosphere going. So yeah, there were a lot of mixed feelings, bit of nerves, but once I got on stage, it really did feel so comfortable. I felt so comfortable on stage. I really enjoyed that show.
Tonight we're back in an actual venue, on an actual stage, in Heaven! This is our first physical event this year. It's also my first time on stage since I stopped drinking on January the 1st. Thank you very much. I'm five months sober, and it feels very strange being sober on stage, I tell you.
Well, you did brilliantly hosting, and it was great fun for me to be quasi backstage in the tower, where, as we call it, the Princess in the Tower, doing my recordings among the artists, in some cases standing a bit back from them, and in some cases standing towards the front of the box to get closer to the stage. First up, you had PJ Samuels, who I met towards the end of last year, but only online. How did you meet PJ, and what made you decide to put her on first?
I met PJ a couple of years ago when the Sister anthology came out from Team Angelica, and she came to South Bank, Polari at South Bank, and she did a set, and I just fell in love with her straight away. I just thought, I love you. She's got such a wonderful, warm energy about her. She's great fun. I think she's hugely talented, very modest, very easy to work with. All the things I like about people. There's no difficulty working with her. And since then, there was an occasion when someone who should remain nameless left me in the lurch at the last minute. They were scheduled to appear at an event, and they didn't let me know until 6:30, and the show was starting at 7:30. And I contacted PJ, and she basically just stepped in at an hour's notice. Had I not already thought the world of her, she would have gone up in my estimation just by doing that. So I just thought she would be a good person to open the show, because she has a natural warmth about her. She's just very warm. And even though her poetry is often quite tough. It's about some quite tough subjects. Her delivery is not remotely combative or anything. She's very much a kind of, she sort of gets you on side and she kind of woos the audience and she warms the audience up, and then she sort of delivers the punchlines. And I thought that would be a good tonal start to the show, because I knew that the show was going to be pretty hard hitting the first half, so I wanted to sort of ease people in with something deceptively. It's that sort of iron fist and a velvet glove thing that she has going on. I think, you know, she's a strong woman, but she delivers it in a very, very way that's very hard to object to or to take umbrage at. She's very charming and likable and warm. She has an amazing smile and she looks fantastic. I mean, her whole look is just amazing. And I just thought that would be a nice way of sort of easing people into the show, because I knew it was going to go off in a much more hard-hitting direction after that.
Please welcome the wonderful PJ Samuels.
Good evening, everyone. Hey! It's nice to see you. You're doing that. Let me give you a shadow. Oh, you want shadow? Wait. Promise. Good evening. Hi. And breathe, PJ. And breathe, everyone. We're here. We're alive. Together. After 3. Let us shout freedom. 1, 2, 3. Freedom! Yes. Diaspora. We are the children birthed by cesarean section, ripped from our homeland's womb without anesthesia, told we should be grateful. Or repatriate. Or get over it. We cannot. She struggles to heal, she's hurting. She has open wounds, cankers that erupt. I want to welcome everyone in this room, and I want to welcome you into Joelle, and I want to thank you so much for being here. And I want to welcome all who are here on me in spirit, and I want to thank you all for your energy, and I want to welcome the ancestors. Bless you and thank you. Watch over us. My sister. Love your woman. Hey, these technology things ain't sweet. My sister, love your woman hard. Love her in the morning, afternoon, and evening. Love her every second in between. Love every cell of her being, with every atom of your existence. Love your woman hard. And I pray that woman is you. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to myself. Dear friend, commune. When you get together in a room, your aura bounces off the wall. Your afro commands God to take a second look. Sermons are written about you. Loneliness will tell you you're the only one. Awkward will tell you you're better off alone. Stories of you too much will leave you feeling you deserve it, nor you do not. You're healing. Feel your grief, but don't grow into it. It's not your home. Find your tribe. Commune. Thank you very much for being my tribe and being here to commune with me tonight. Share peace and wine on your bedroom floor while sharing tips on interrupting coconut oil sleep. Cook tin fish with rice at 3 a.m. Trying not to wake your neighbor with your laughter and laugh. Do not teach sadness your name. Check in on each other. Find time for each other. Dance. Make your own spells and rituals. Your makes is not a burden. Explore your possibilities. Chant Omia while spinning voodoo all to a juju script. Then roll out to church if that's your bag. Because you're everything. Everything, and your child is waiting for you. Bring your potions to the pot. Let's make magic. Black femme magic. There's keloid scarring where they join. Bruises where they overlap. My intersections ache. We had a strangely interesting summer. So this is an elegy for summer lost. The sunshine came or didn't. I was never sure. Locked inside, hiding from the invisible. My friend, who had never even kept fresh flowers as they killed everything green, started growing cucumbers. They did that too. Grew them to full size. And we waited for the sun to feel its song, on our skin to have its warm tongue lick our faces. More death on the news, so we turned the TV off. But we saw it anyway, because we kept social media on. And still we waited. But summer never came. Behind the windows of our keep-safe cages, we bear witness as trees screamed and dropped their leaves. The sky cried, and the carpet on the ground went to rot. And my friend was crying in their cucumber salad as another friend was no more. We gathered on the screen and we did what we could in honor of her memory and in respect of the grief filling the space that used to be her. Her harmonies echoed, but we never sang. We never sang. It's strange how the things that we get comfort in was taken from us, and how we never noticed, we never thought that we would miss singing as a way to hold our pain and to hold our grief. This is an ode to September. I don't know why. I was born in September. To you, September, because you crisp at the edges and shrink if I touch you too hard. You're the hardest softy. You're the softest hardy. There are 2 long days, short nights. There are 2 long nights, short days, and there's you, arbitrator, balance. Remember when we first met? Me neither. Those were the days when you went back to school and I hated you. Those were the days when you went back to school and I loved you. Summer and you just need to sit and talk. You can work it out. You can live together, I promise. Hugs. Hugs. It's not an identity crisis. You were never meant to be summer. You were never meant to be winter. You are you. Glorious, golden, beautifully individual September. November, can't wait to meet you. But October is always in the way. Any one of you who's out there thinking that about your friends, lovers, stop it. Sometimes life is like that. She'd be so good to you too. So, that 30 days thing, eh? You, April, June, and November, huh? How is it being in the chosen few? Did I mention November wants to meet you? She really does. Really, really does. Sunshine says hello. I hear it's spider mating season. I was told to ask you, do you know anything about that? For all those times I seemed not to notice, you understand. There's some weird human socialization issues around how to behave with one new fancy. Unlearning, necessary process, implemented. November, I have told her of your yearning. There's nothing we can do about October. Get over it. Your name has a certain zing to it. The way your curves wrap around my lips. I am talking about September. The way your curves wrap around my lips. The way your middle sits on my tongue. September, 10. I am very interested in the minutiae of your day. Blow by blow, slide by slide, give it to me. Live and in living color. You give it, but damn you take it away, you take it. You rain, your mornings after rain. I really miss you when you're gone. You ruin me for all of the months. You always come around again, just as I am getting over you. I dig on you hard. Love, love. Or something like it. You. It was you all along.
There are some parallels between PJ Samuels and the guest who you had on next, Joelle Taylor, not least having a signature sense of style and being able to say some quite difficult and in some cases extremely difficult and hard-hitting things in a way that is charismatic and in a way that even an audience that aren't particularly familiar with performance poetry can relate to almost immediately. I think Joelle has very rare gifts, wouldn't you say?
I think Joelle is a rock star. I mean, I think her delivery and her performance style is just extraordinary. And I've seen her many times over the years. She once did a gig with us at a library and the usual person that we dealt with wasn't there. And so when we arrived at the venue, we were sort of an unknown quantity to the librarian who greeted us. And
those library gigs are always a little bit tough anyway. But then you had that. Yeah.
We were seated in this kind of like brightly lit, sad little corner of the library. Me, Karen MacLeod was there. I think Alexis Gregory was there, and Joelle. And I put Joelle on first because I didn't know her very well then. I put her on first, and she came on, and she just blew everyone away. And the woman who'd previously been quite kind of sniffy suddenly just looked at us with this newfound awe and respect. So she was my secret weapon that night without me even realising it. But I do think that that was some years ago. That was about 2015 maybe, I think. Like many performers, she's got better and better and better. I think the work has become braver. I mean, Songs My Enemy Taught Me, which was the last book, I think is an extraordinary book, and that she is able to articulate vulnerability in a way that feels powerful, which I think is an extraordinary gift. And well, I find it very humbling, actually. I find her very humbling to me to watch her perform. I think when she performed the previous Polari in Heaven back in February 2019, she was on in the first half. She closed the first half, and David McAlmont closed the second half singing. And one of the people in the audience tweeted saying, Joelle Taylor broke my heart and David McAlmont mended it again. And I thought that was an absolutely perfect way of summing up the tone. She does have that wonderful way of just really grabbing you and really twisting you around, and you feel quite mauled by it. It's incredibly tough. I mean, in some ways, her and PJ are similar in the sense that they have a very good performance style, and they can deliver words and content which is incredibly hard-hitting, but in a way that makes it palatable just by the sheer force of personality. But on the other hand, they're also very different, because PJ's got a sort of earth mama quality about her, and Joelle is this real old school butch, and she's really got that butch thing going on, and she's really, she's backstage straightening up her tie, and we're comparing suits and shoes and collars and things.
Of course. A pair of dandies, you two.
She's a very sharp dresser, and she's a terrific performer, and she was wonderful that night, as I knew she would be.
Big up your mates, how are ya? How are ya? Hey. Well, you know how remarkable this is to be in this space in front of all of you again, just over a year later. It's a very emotional night for me and for all of us, because look at what we're doing. We're here again. Big up whole Preston. My name's Joelle Taylor and I'm a poet, and my new book has just been given to me like 40 minutes ago. Very briefly, I've only got like 15 minutes or so on stage. So this book started as a story of my personal journey as a masculine woman, a butch dyke, through the 80s and 90s, and I wanted to revisit that time and to remember it and to call upon my sense of community. I want to call upon my people to remember who we are and to remember each other's faces and come together in a space. So, the book begins with a series of vitrines. You know, they're like glass display cabinets you find in a museum. And they begin, a appear across London in all the spaces where all the old dyke bars used to be, the clubs, the old gay bars, the cruising grounds, the squats. And inside each of these display cases is either a moment from my personal history or from our collective history. So I'm going to begin because I was telling the lovely Lynn Gaspard from Westbourne Books over there, thank you, Lynn! And I was telling her, she's like, oh, I haven't been here in 17 years, got that wistful look in her eye. Heaven, the nightclub, is in one of these vitrines. It's actually a fish tank, and I was just thinking to myself, why did you put it in a fish tank? I was like, oh, aquarium. Oh. Yeah, here or wig. Heaven, 1995, also shout out to my gay brothers. Vinegar, this moment of belief. Club in a fish tank. Riot, Genesis, a boy touches her fingertip to a light beam, and God winks a wet eye, and maybe the light is an escalator to the afterlife, or the part of her body she checked in the cloakroom. But tonight, all of the dead will dance with her. All of the dead are well dressed this evening. They solemn the escalator descend to the dance. Tequila Mockingbird releases her wig back into the wild, blows a kiss that exhales into carrion birds, the core of bad lipstick, numb beaks scattering round, white seeds from which Gautier sailors grow, haloed in certainty, their muscles, the shaven heads of women marching back into their bones, a clearing at the center of them. The butchers peel off their shirts, and underneath they are children. Salt this boy. Reaches toward the infinite, this moment between. How she sees the ghosts of those still alive. How she conjures life from life. How the lighthouse winks at the storm. Thank you. So now I'm just going to skip through the whole story. In one of these vitrines is an entire pub. It is based on for all the dykes that used to go to the Artful Dodger, the Royal Oak, the Welly, First Out. And it's a kind of a made-up place, frankly, called the Maryville. There's a whole section of the book called Old Maryville, and this is from that. Summer, all night long. Boys, soft-skinned and shaven, shelter from the sun in the shadows cast by elder butchers, kick balls and catch each other. Sketch out a harness with billiards and recreate the moment of conception. There are only so many holes a boy can fall down. But here she is again. And maybe the film reel jumps a little here, and when I say film, what I mean is heart, and when I say heart, what I mean is idea. Boys are newly planted. As she passes, there is a reason storms are named after women feel. Their roots reach out to one another, bend into her yes, and one boy, her tongue a diving board, launches into her fathom. Nothing as concrete as a back slap. Nothing as young as slap palms, but still, the bar knows what it knows. That a tongue is a bed. And this boy understands how to make it origami the sheets into something wild and confident, a swan or the Hadron Collider. And they will practice, they're careful all night. Morning will leave by the back door, never cold. But the boy dreams, thinks, maybe this time something will be born, thinks. If I had a baby, I would call it Flinch. Very cute. This is another character. She's called Valentine. They're all based on real people. Valentine's a sort of 30-year-old stuff. Born, right body, wrong day. Valentine flicks her lighter in the corner of the club and white women flutter. Tonight, she has dressed as the inside of a mouth. A hand-sewn suit excised from a cured night sky. Black leather has its own skin care routine. It listens to its mother. I've heard it said some girls give birth to themselves from the backs of motorbikes. Invent the wind, let the road uncurl from between their legs, the Lemniscate motorway, something British and unbidden. I know why we're drawn to the corners. It's where the road cannot reach us. Every part of a woman is a weapon if you know how to hold her, Valentine says. The corner flicks a morse, and in the dark, white hearts beat like moss against the headline. Thank you.
As well as introducing us to the cast of her book and the regulars at the Maryville, the original dyke bar that Joelle imagines and portrays so beautifully, she also introduced the ideas of some of the awful things that are going on to our LGBT brothers and sisters around the world, sometimes only a short plane ride away. And this poem explores that, looking again at the metaphor of the queer club or aquarium.
3. The interrogation suite is in the old gay club. The mirror ball reflects on its mistakes, has each of us imprisoned in its vernacular. We stare up at one another, sad parenthesis of beauty, refracted into something unwell, unwelcome in our homes, our bodies. And when the purge walks in, whistling, show tunes tipping, the bouncers, others slowly appear. A rainbow, slumped in a gilded cage. A girl, still as brass, eyes escape tunnels. A queen dances in a dress of blue bruises. A brown-eyed boy, young as love, swallows her foam and does not cry. A suited woman asks for a cigarette, but when it comes, it is a country. Hey, maybe we'll get to write a musical. Something about rainbows and sickles. It will start when the red curtain pulls apart. Each side no longer speaking to the other. And there we will be, tap dancing in chorus lines, hollow-cheeked and high-kicking, barbed wires, a feather boa, a noose comes in Oxford colours. And when we show our teeth to a lens, there will be a high wall somewhere that no one will be able to see around. But listen, you will say, an ear pressed against the wall. Listen, are they not happy? Do they not dance? Is the melody not a catch for a cathedral of girls snuffed like candles? 5. I'll delete every tweet, but it won't matter. I'll be screenshot before I am shot. A jury of antelopes will wipe their bloody lips on a photograph of me caught in the ropes of a kiss. So little difference between a bluebird and a blue bottle. Let it saw the day in half. Let a boy reach for the hand of air. Let a woman take her seat at a desk, each of them a fixed point 6. The first part of me to disappear will be my mouth, sugar and water. Then my hand, fingers erasing to pencil brothers, a shoulder, scent risen to sauna steam, ancestors, left foot, both legs, torso stripped through to the metal seat. Delete my heart. Evaporate the idea of me, a slow strip, teased down to the breath, the belief. The last part of me to disappear, my absence.
In the second half of the show, Paul introduced V.G. Lee, a favourite among all Polari audiences from around the UK and potentially even beyond. I was very delighted to see Val at the venue, but my delight was also tinged with sadness because this would be the last time that Val would be performing, at least as far as we know. Going back, Paul and I have worked together for many years, and I was very privileged to capture this moment on the night, not only because we had been indoors for about 7 months, but because Heaven was so full of memories and celebration and sadness, and it was greatly cathartic to be there. Also, it was a privilege for me to be there as part of Polari, which is becoming a long-standing partnership. And speaking of long-standing partnerships, you and V.G. Lee, and you mentioned that this was her last performance. How did that feel to have that in part 2 and to know that it was the last time that Val would be performing with you?
Well, I knew it was going to be bittersweet. I knew that she'd be funny. I knew that she would get people laughing. And I wanted the second half of the show to lift people up because the first half of the show was quite hard-hitting. So I always think in terms of narrative when I'm putting a show together, and in terms of the emotional impact of something. So you want people to leave at the end of the night feeling that they've gone through an emotional journey and they're uplifted. And I knew that Val's the story she was going to read, which is very autobiographical, that comes from Oh You Pretty Thing, her most recent short story collection, and it's about being married when she was married to a guy years ago, and it's about being unhappily married, and it's a very, very bittersweet, funny story, and that sort of fitted the mood really, because it was a bittersweet experience for me to be introducing her on stage for the I don't know how many times I've introduced V.G. Lee on stage, because she has travelled with me on tour. Not every year, but nearly every year since 2014. We must have done literally hundreds of gigs together. And she's always been my partner in crime. She's always been the person that sort of gives me the pep talk before I go on stage. Says to me, no, don't have another drink, Paul. You don't need another drink. She was the person who used to do that back in the days when I did drink. And she's always been a great person to travel with because she's great fun and she always delivers. You know, one of the acts hasn't gone down very well or something. You can always rely on Val to come on afterwards and just get everyone up again. She's just great with an audience. It was I have very mixed feelings about it. It was exciting and thrilling to have her there. And she was very excited about being at Heaven and being on that big stage. But it was also very sad as well because, you know, unless she changes her mind, who knows? But at this moment in time, it's her last gig. So she's not planning to do any more. She wants to focus on her allotment and on her writing. I do understand it. You know, she spent an awful lot of time travelling and doing gigs. And she lives in Hastings. So doing gigs in the north of England or elsewhere, you know, she'd have to get the train early in the morning to get to London, to then get the other train to get on, and then get back late at night or the next day. And you know, she has a cat who she loves dearly. So I do understand she's made choices, and I think going through I know because she told me, but going through last year, I think a lot of people last year, faced with what was happening, made a lot of choices about what they wanted their priorities to be going forward, and hers is to get to complete the books that she hasn't finished yet, because Val's always got several books on the go. She's been writing for so long, and she's got lots of unfinished novels. I mean, I know of at least 4 or 5 that we've been in a writing group together for many years, and so I've had the privilege of reading large chunks of some of them, but she wants to get all that work completed. That's her priority now. So she'd rather do that than focus on the performing. So, but you know, she went out on a high. You know, she went out on a real high. She came on to These Boots Are Made for Walking by Nancy Sinatra, wearing a 60s wig and big boots, with the photograph of herself behind her on stage when she was very young and married in a sort of very 60s sex kitten outfit. It was a fantastic photo. It's actually the photo on the cover of the book. And she had great fun. She enjoyed it. She enjoyed herself. And then she did her Auntie Val post bag, where she does these fictitious, I think, possibly one could call them, agony aunt letters that she receives from various people, and then she gives them her advice, which is firm but fair. And very funny.
Very funny. Well, we will miss her, including audiences in the Northeast. I know she has some fans there, among my family, and also in London, because she is very funny, and she has been making me laugh quite painfully since I first saw her at what was Y Laugh and is now Elfest in 2008. So that was when we first met. And she was doing not a story about Deirdre, who's the other badly behaved character in her short stories, but one about Pat. And I was just insensible with laughter. There's just something very, very clever about the way that she writes. But I like the fact that she didn't sort of bust out an old favourite, and the fact that even though it was her last appearance, she's still kind of keeping it fresh by doing something that's personal to her, even if that story doesn't have quite as many laughs in it. I think it's pretty much a novella, Oh You Pretty Thing. I think it's a really interesting piece of work.
I mean, it would have been very easy for her to have done, you know, Deirdre in the cinema story, which always has people falling over in the aisles, you know, or well, any one of those Deirdre stories that she has, which are all they're guaranteed crowd pleasers. But I think she made the right decision to be in the here and now, even though the story is set not in the here and now, but it's her work in the here and now. It's not an old piece that she's dusted off and trotted out again. It was a relatively new piece of work. So
yes.
I think that was the right decision.
Did you enjoy the first half? That's what I'd like to hear. It's time for our next performance this evening. I have to say, I'm announcing it tonight with very mixed emotions. Because as Ziggy Stardust almost said, not only is it her first live performance of the year, but it's the last show she'd ever do. Fiji Lee is the author of 5 novels and 2 short story collections. She's been part of our little Polari family for many years and has toured with us since 2014. But tonight she's hanging up her walking sandals. You'll be missed, Val. As we've never seen her before, and we'll never ever see her again. Please give it up for Fiji Lee!
It's wonderful to be in heaven, although it is at least 2 decades before I intended to go. But whatever, you know, I came along, good spirits, fairly good spirits anyway. Now what I want is I'd love to see you all smile. A really good smile, because I've not seen smiles in ages. I've seen all manner of limp masks. And I don't know about you, but the people in my bubble, they're not smilers.
They're really not.
I would choose 2 people who are as miserable as bloody sin. So well, I do leave Les alone, actually. This is my ex-neighbour, but I can't shake him off. Although he is 90. Just leave that with you while I turn away for a moment. Just to get a drink. This isn't water. Ho, ho, ho. Okay, I'm going to read something a bit tonight from my short story collection, the title story, and then if there's time I might do a few Auntie Val you probably prefer them to the reading, but never mind. I've come a long way and I intend to do it, whatever any of you feel or think. The problem with wigs is you can't get a mask on without it rising above your head, and that doesn't look very attractive. Okay, here we go. I'm going to read an extract from the title story, Oh You Pretty Thing, and if I say it's set in the 1970s, and in 1969, which is why these pictures are up behind us, in 1969 I got married. It was to be 10 years before I ever met a lesbian. In fact, it was 10 years before I even heard the word lesbian. I lived just outside London and it was a very small community. So I got married at 19 and my husband was 6 months younger than I was. And my reason for marrying him seemed a good one at the time. He looked like the good-looking member of the Bee Gees. And that counted for quite a lot in our village. So it was rather a coup on my part. I don't think he probably wanted to marry me, but I can be very persistent and annoying if I don't get my own way. So we did marry, and it lasted till I was 35 because I kept wanting him to ask a question that I could answer with, "I'm leaving." And it took to my aunt's birthday in April of 1985 before he said something like, "Do you want to leave?" And it was the chance I had, and I rose to the occasion. But had he asked it 6 years earlier, I'd have gone. I think I'm very resilient. So this excerpt is about Mark and Julie, and it could just as easily be about Rob and Val. I was a very different person in those days. I didn't think much. I was narrow-minded, quite an awful person. And I've managed to quell some of those over the years. But this is Mark and Julie, or Alan and Rob. Mark and Julie wear matching 15-carat gold wedding rings. Julie's got an engagement ring as well, a diamond, small but real in a platinum setting. After she'd been working at InfoPulse, a small marketing company a mile away from where she lived in Hemel Hempstead, for a few weeks, Donna, the office manager, asked her how long she'd been married. 7 years, Julie said. Donna looked amazed. "Julie, you're only about 18, I thought. Marriage will suit you." Julie flashed her a smile. "Yes, it does. But actually, it only sort of suited her. If you'd had to give marks out of 10, it would probably have been a 4. Although had you asked Mark, he'd have said 10 out of 10, no question, babe." Okay. Things Julie likes about being married, being addressed as Mrs. Norman, instead of plain old Miss Old Julie Foster, bringing the words "my husband" into most conversations, going shopping at the weekend with her husband, Waitrose in Berkhamsted for groceries, and the recently opened Marlow shopping centre for clothes and a meal. One Saturday in particular sticks in Julie's memory. At the time, there seemed nothing special about the day. Only later, years later, when she looked back, with a mixture of sadness and relief, but never regret, she saw it as significant. Julie's admiring her reflection in the mirrored double doors of their fitted wardrobe, turning this way and that, thinking that not every woman can carry off ice blue skin-tight jeans in a size 10 worn with a baby pink crop top. She turns to Mark, who is absorbed in colour-coding his sock drawer, and says, "I don't look too bad, do I?" "You look fantastic," he says. "Did I ever tell you? I was the most unpopular girl in my school," she said. "You did tell me." "I never go to a school year reunion, Mark, but just sometimes I think I'd enjoy seeing everyone's faces if I did go. Really, I'd like to be dead and floating above them, and then see myself walk into the assembly hall and everyone's jaw dropping." Mark looks at her with admiration, as if she'd said something really profound. "Babe, I don't want you dead, but I'd love to be with you at that reunion." He joins her reflection in the mirror. "You know, Julie, these are our best years. We've got to make the most of them. They'll never come back." It's Julie's turn to look at Mark admiringly, as if he said something really profound. "How long will they last, Marky?" You look lovely when you're 90, he says. That will do for me, she says.
As Paul said earlier, Vijay Lee also has an alter ego, Auntie Val, the questionably helpful agony aunt. And here we get a couple of extracts from people who have written into Auntie Val, asking her to solve their romantic problems. They're braver than I am.
Bless you all. It is quite emotional actually being here. So,
We love you, Val. Please don't go.
So I'm afraid I will have to go because people need me over there, far away. Well, they might say they don't, and they wish I'd just go away. One of my other hats on, I am a sort of an Auntie Val agony aunt, the LGBTQ community. So now this is a one for the men in the audience. Dear Auntie Val, I've been with my partner Clive for 23 years. We are still deliriously happy. However, for his 50th birthday after lockdown, Clive has asked me if I can procure a lookalike version of Ryan Gosling for a once-in-a-lifetime night of passion. I have always been open to new experiences. After all, I was the one who introduced Clive to the magic of our dual-lit food processor in polished chrome. But I fear this experience may not prove as beneficial to our relationship. Any thoughts? Signed, Captain Eric Dewsbury, RAF Prize Norton. Dear Eric, you do not say if you're included in this night of passion, but no matter, Clive has obviously put you in the driving seat. Orchestrate the event meticulously, and if you're not to be part of it, book into a 5-star hotel and have a delicious meal served in your room. Rest assured, Clive will be totally intimidated by this young man and unable to function satisfactorily. You will return home to find a wiser and grateful partner. Of course, I could be wrong, and you'll find the locks changed and your clothes completely in a black bag on the front step, just in case I'm sending you my leaflet when one door closes. This is one for me because I have an allotment. In fact, I've only written it to myself. Dear Auntie Val, the woman on the adjoining allotment to mine has given me 2 carrier bags full of rhubarb. Should I read anything significant into her gift? Signed, Simone de Beauvoir. Dear Simone, only that she has a glut of rhubarb. However, if her gifts escalate, say to a punnet of fresh strawberries, accompanied by a delicate Wedgwood jug full of fresh cream, accompanied by a lingering look and heightened colour, then you might allow yourself some optimism. Dear Auntie Val, I'm a 43-year-old man who's never had a sexual relationship with anyone. I would happily try either a man or a woman. Does this mean that I am bisexual? Johann Strasbourg. Dear Johann, no, it means you're desperate. Dear Auntie Val, I live in the Midlands, but once COVID is under control, I'm willing to travel almost any distance to meet Ms. Right. I am amiable, love long country walks, am caring, friendly and loyal. Friends tell me that I'm very attractive and look at least 10 years younger than my actual age of 67. I enclose a recent photograph. Any advice to help me find a soulmate would be gratefully received. Kind regards, Jennifer Davenport, Solihull. Dear Jennifer, if you haven't managed to find Miss Wright in that large area you refer to as the Midlands, I don't think you'll have much luck elsewhere. You say that you're amiable, love long country walks and are caring, friendly and loyal. In these stressful times, why not settle for a Labrador puppy? You're almost guaranteed to discover you have much in common. Finally, having glanced at your photograph, your friends have misled you. My successful selfies for the over 60s will be available online later this month. Dear Auntie Val, I've always disliked cats. Can I still be a lesbian, Sally of Shoreham? Dear Sally, absolutely not.
Part 2 of Polari in Heaven will feature Alexis Gregory performing extracts from his show Riot Act, which on the night were accompanied with images and film. Hopefully that will be up in the next couple of weeks, and I very much look forward to editing that and introducing it to you. To finish off this episode, I asked Paul what he thought of how the night had gone and what had been positive and what had been challenging about it. It was a really special night, and I hope that that's come across in the programme. We'll be back with you very soon.
For me, it was a total triumph, because it was putting Polari back on stage again at a really landmark, large venue, before a sizable audience, of over 100 people. So for me, that was a huge success, and it gave me a real boost after being, basically doing everything on Zoom for the previous 7 months until that. So to be back among live performers again, I do think Zoom is wonderful, and I do think that going forward there will always be a place for doing online events. I think many people are realising that, and I certainly I'm planning to do that. Partly because you can reach people that wouldn't be able to come to events for whatever reason, who can't physically get there or whatever. But you can't really beat, for me, that feeling of being on stage with a live audience. There's something that happens between performer and audience which you can't replicate online. It's very hard to replicate that. There's something organic about it, and I just left on such a high. And also, I left sober. Normally I leave Polari at Heaven pretty drunk, because I usually have quite a few drinks after the show as well. It was quite nice just to be walking out of there feeling very fresh and, having done the job. Wasn't dreading a hangover the next morning for the first time. And I thought everyone delivered. I thought all the performers gave really great performances. I thought it was a stonker of a show, as they say in Wales. It was stonking. So I was very proud of it.